Hello, this is Dave again with Playthrough Board Games, and I just wanted to walk you through the second part of my adventure here, island hopping, for the Pathfinder Adventure card game Skull and Shackles set. To refresh our memory, we're going to take a look at the island hopping scenario card in order to see what we have to do to win, and see if I can do it in the remaining 10 turns that I have left. Let's check this out. This is the island hopping scenario card. We can see the main villain pictured here, the Adaro Barbarian. If we successfully defeat the Adaro Barbarian and all other locations are closed, we win the scenario and get the reward of an item from the box. What I have to do to succeed is close the Lonely Island and the shipyard, and I will also have to confront the barbarian captain where I suspect he is, which is the Shark Island. Unfortunately, the Shark Island is a difficult area to fight in, and we'll have our work cut out for us. Let's take a look at where our heroes left off and see if I can succeed. Alejandra here has a relatively strong hand of cards. She has 2 attacking spells and 1 spell that can bolster her ally's strength, in addition to 2 blessings and an ally. The ally will let her close the Lonely Island location by banishing him, which will be important to our strategy coming up. We know from last time that we have Cure in our deck here. I recharged Cure successfully, which means I put it on the bottom of the deck. In this case, though, since there's only 1 card, that card is Cure. This means that I can afford to discard 1 card from my hand or play 1 card from my hand during Alejandra's upcoming turn in order to get Cure in my hand. Cure will then allow me to heal either Alejandra or her ally Celtiel, which means putting more cards back in their respective deck. Celtiel is at the Shark Island, where he will have to encounter a Hammerhead Shark henchman at the beginning of each turn. This means he will quickly deplete his resources if he chooses to explore the deck in question. In order to avoid this, we may opt not to explore. However, there are very few turns left in our game. Namely, we only have a third of the game left to go before we run out of time to complete the scenario. So we will have to budget our time wisely in order to achieve our objective of defeating the villain and also to keep both characters alive throughout the duration of the scenario. Before I continue with Celtiel's turn, I wanted to remind you of the effects of my True Wind ship. When using this ship, I may discard a card from the Blessings deck to recharge a random card from my discard pile. This will allow me to keep both characters alive longer at the cost of shortening the overall time I have to complete the adventure. After flipping a card from the Blessing deck, Celtiel must encounter the Hammerhead Shark at the Shark Island location. He's going to use his boarding axe in an attempt to defeat this shark. The shark has a difficulty to defeat of 9, so we roll our strength and melee die plus 1d6 in an attempt to defeat the shark. We've rolled a 12, a 5, and a 7 here, so we do successfully defeat the Hammerhead Shark at the beginning of our turn. Because I only had to reveal the boarding axe to get to roll the extra d6, I do not need to discard it from my hand, which means Celtiel can live to fight another day. So I flip the top card of the Blessing deck for him. Now I have the option, based on my ship, to discard the next card of the Blessings deck in order to recharge a random card from my discard pile, which will allow me to have a little more life to go on here. I now have 2 cards in Celtiel's deck, which means he'll have a little bit more of a chance of surviving what comes next. So I can do his first exploration at the beginning of his turn. We find a buckler, which is an armor. He has a constitution of a d8. We will test that versus the 3 that I need to get the armor. I roll an 8, so I do acquire the buckler to my hand, which gives us even more energy here. Before the end of his turn, Celtiel may attempt to recharge a spell in his discard pile. He is going to attempt to recharge Magic Weapon. Magic Weapon needs a Arcane or Divine 6 to recharge. He rolls his D8. He gets an 8, so we recharge Magic Weapon as well. This means Celtial now has 3 cards in his deck, so he's feeling a lot more alive than he previously was. That is the end of Celtial's turn. We will now move to Alahazra's turn. So we flip the Blessings deck for Alahazra. Alahazra has basically one mission on this turn. Alahazra wants to close the Lonely Island location. To do so, she will banish the swab from her deck. She then draws a random ally from the box and puts it in her hand. The random ally she draws is actually the swab, so she has really lost nothing here. At the end of her turn, she may discard a card with the Divine trait to add a card that has the Divine trait from her discard pile to her hand. Strength is beneficial, but Fireblade is a better spell for her offensively. It is now the beginning of Celtial's turn. He is at the Shark Island, where he must encounter the Hammerhead Shark henchman at the beginning of each turn. He may not evade the encounter as per the rules on the card. So here we are fighting the Hammerhead Shark. It has a difficulty to defeat of 9. He will reveal his boarding axe to have a strength or melee roll plus a d6. Then he has a trick up his sleeve based on his character ability. He may recharge a card with an attacking trait to add a d6 and the card's traits to the check. That means he gets to roll his d8 plus a d6 plus another d6. We gather our dice. I have a little rolling tray I'm going to be using here, so you can see better what's happening. We roll. The results are a 2, 4, 9. So we just defeat the Hammerhead Shark. Just set that aside because he has to encounter it at the beginning of each turn that he is at the Shark Island. And then we flip over the top card of the deck. This is a ranged weapon, which will be less useful because it uses dexterity as opposed to strength. However, if he does acquire it, it gives him another card that he might be able to use as a hit. So we have to roll a dexterity die. His dexterity is a d6. The likelihood that he will get this is very slim, but we'll try. I rolled a 2. We do not acquire the pistol, so it is simply removed from the deck. At this point, he has no option to continue exploring. However, he may, at the end of his turn, before he resets his hand, try to recharge a spell from his discard pile, which is another one of his special abilities. In this case, the spell Arcane Armor is sitting on top of our deck. The recharge is an Arcane 4. So for his Arcane skill, he has a d8 plus 3. So we will roll the d8 and see if we succeed. He rolls a 7 and succeeds at recharging the Arcane spell. This gives him yet another hit point in his deck and removes the possibility that he'll die a little bit further from us. He has to draw up to his hand size of 5. I draw the spell Buoyancy, which will be useful to allow us to examine our deck and see if there's something on the bottom that he wants. We will now move to Alahazra's turn. I didn't mention last turn, but the blessing I had flipped for Celtial was the blessing of Erastil from the blessings deck. Now we must flip again for Alahazra. We flip a blessing of the gods. At this point, she is at a closed location and would like to move to an open location to try to help close it. So we will move to the floating shipyard. At the floating shipyard, she may now explore. She will do so. She finds a divine spell. That's Aid. Her divine trait is a d12 plus 2. We will roll to see if she acquires the spell. She needs a 6 or better. So we rolled an 8, and we do acquire Aid to our hand. Aid allows her to add a d6 to any check. This could be helpful, especially if we encounter the final boss in one of these locations shortly. In order to explore again, she will play the Blessing of the Gods in her hand and see what's in her location. She finds a barrier. The barrier is called Treasure Map. In order to defeat the barrier, intelligence, knowledge, wisdom, or survival 6 is the amount she has to roll. Her intelligence is a d6 plus 2, however her wisdom is much higher, a d8. So she may have a chance by using her d8 to defeat this barrier. There's low stakes with this barrier. It is simply banished if she does not succeed. And that is the only consequence. She will roll her d8 and attempt to defeat the barrier. She rolls a 6, which is the requirement, so she may now examine the top card of her location deck. The top card is a Hammerhead Shark, so it's a henchman. It is not a boon, therefore she may not obviously acquire it to her hand. She knows what she's up against in trying to close this location. Actually, she would just try to end her turn, because if she plays a Blessing to explore, she'll have too few cards to draw up. She draws the top card of her deck to end her turn. Cure will allow her to heal herself on her turn, which will give us a little more life for Alhazra. It is the beginning of Celtial's turn. We flip the top card of the Blessings deck. It is the Blessing of Pharasma. We put that in the Blessings discard pile, and then we have to encounter the Hammerhead Shark at the Shark Island location. The check to defeat is again a 9, as it always is, and we will try to roll. Celtial is going to do his trick again of recharging a spell with the attack trait to use his weapon and add a d6 plus the spell's traits to his weapon. So he gets to roll his d8 and 2d6 as he did last turn in an attempt to defeat the Hammerhead Shark. We rolled a 10 and a 4, ultimately adding up to 14. The shark is again defeated, and Celtial may make the first exploration of his turn. Okay, this is the main villain that we have encountered. That was a little bit unexpected. The Adaro Barbarian may not be evaded, so we can't get out of our encounter. All damage is poison damage, which doesn't really affect us at the moment. The check to defeat is a 15. This is a big moment. I could win right here if Alhazra can successfully close the floating shipyard. She is going to look at the requirement to close the floating shipyard. It is to succeed at an intelligence or craft 8 check. Note that closing this location will only temporarily close it, not permanently close it. However, if she succeeds at closing this, it will prevent the barbarian from escaping to her location. She is going to play the spell Aid for herself to boost her intelligence from a d6 plus 2 to 2d6 plus 2. She will add her total together and see if she can temporarily close the floating shipyard. So 2d6 plus 2 to temporarily close the floating shipyard. A 5 and a 3 plus 2 is greater than the craft 8 check, so we will turn that sideways to indicate that the location is temporarily closed. Now we must deal with the Adaro Barbarian with Celtial. At this point, he has the boarding axe in his hand, which he can use to attack. Unfortunately, he recharged his last spell with the attack trait, so he cannot do his trick to bolster his ability to attack. Alhazra has a few things up her sleeve, however, that will help. She may play one card of each type in order to help his check. So the first thing she will do will be to play the Blessing of the Gods in order to help Then she will look and see if she has other helpful cards among her spells, which she does. In this case, she has this. Discard this card to decrease the difficulty to defeat a monster by 1 plus the adventure deck number, if any. After playing this card, if you do not have either the arcane or divine spell, she has to banish it. However, she does have the divine skill, so she may roll her d12 instead to attempt to recharge Black Spot. If all goes well, it will not matter whether or not she recharges this spell. She does succeed, however. She needs a 6 to recharge, and she rolls a 7 on her die. So she has another card in her deck. Now we have to assemble the dice for Celtial. He is going to discard his boarding axe and go all in here. He has a strength or melee die plus 1d6. If he discards it, he may add another d6. So he will have 2d8, one from the blessing that Alahazra played, and one from his regular melee attack, and 2d6, and the difficulty of 15 to defeat the barbarian has been reduced by 1 by Alahazra's spell. So, let's roll it up without further ado and see if we succeed at our first scenario here. So, 7 plus 6 is 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, plus the bonus that he would get for his melee is 3, so we add that in and we have handily defeated the Adaro Barbarian. When you defeat a villain, even if he is going to flee to another location, the location he was at is automatically closed without having to complete the check to defeat the location's closing condition. There is no effect when this location is permanently closed, so we have just won our first scenario. At the end of any scenario, there are 2 types of rewards that are gained. One is the reward listed on the scenario card, in this case a random item from the box, and the other is any plunder cards that you have acquired beneath your ship and managed to retain. If your ship is damaged, you may lose plunder cards. In this case, our ship has survived intact until the end of the scenario, so we will acquire both the random items from the box and the cards beneath our ship. So we have acquired a rum bottle. Discard this card to choose a character at your location to add 1d10 to that character's check to acquire an ally that has the pirate trait. After playing this card, succeed at a survival 7 check to recharge this card instead of discarding it. Banish this card to defeat a barrier that has the task trait. The other random item we have acquired is a Ruby of Charisma. Recharge this card to roll your Charisma die instead of a normal die on a non-combat check. This will be very useful for Alahazra. Let's take a look at why. Her Charisma is a d12. So if she wanted to acquire a spell or item and she was having a difficult time doing so, she could roll the d12 instead of the normal die. So again, the Ruby of Charisma will probably go to Alahazra. We'll have to see if we want to keep the rum bottle at all. Without further ado, we will reveal the 2 plunder cards from our scenario. We have a weapon called the Morning Star, and we have a chainmail. The Morning Star looks particularly attractive for Celtial. It does not say it is a 2-handed weapon, which means he could use his trick of recharging a spell to add a d6 to the roll with this weapon. In addition, he gets to add a d8 instead of a d6 like some of his other weapons, and he may also play this card as if it has the bludgeoning trait instead of the piercing trait. This is useful if we encounter an enemy that is like a skeleton, where piercing is irrelevant and in fact makes it more difficult to defeat the skeleton since it's only bone. So we will be adding the Morning Star to Celtial's deck, and we'll have to see if the Chain Mail, the other card, is better than any armors that Celtial may already have. Whatever I decide to do with the decks, please note that there are rules for what can be in each character's deck featured on the back of their card. The card list here specifies that Alahazra's deck must consist of 5 spells, 2 items, 3 allies, and 5 blessings.
She may not have any cards that she does not have the box checked for, so she may not have a weapon ever, she may not have an armor currently, and she may only have this basic column number of spells, items, allies, or blessings. As we advance through adventures, I may opt, based on scenario rewards, to up her number of cards in a particular category. Celtial's deck must consist of 4 weapons, 4 spells, 1 armor, 1 item, 1 ally, and 4 blessings. Again, when I put together his deck, I may pick among any cards that either he or Alejandra have to constitute this list and the number requirements, but ultimately I must follow the rules here on the back of the character card. Thank you for watching my video. I hope it was helpful in figuring out how to play Skull and Shackles, and I wish you all the best in your own adventures.